The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now there are many. Because soon there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
All right, everyone, welcome to the 32nd episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Hosts for today are Greg from Rivet, Dave from Din.social, Austin from Rivet, Sean, entrepreneur and friend to all. I'm Joe, architect founder of Dragonchain. Ross might or might not show up, I don't know. Global Crypto Press. And quick update on the World Blockchain Roundtable layer ownership tokens distribution from last week's episode. Each host from last week will get 222 lot, each topic contributor 83 lot. These ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and maybe most importantly, governance votes. It's actually been there's been a lot of energy flowing through the layer recently. I've seen because I've seen it in the payout metrics. It's pretty cool. I guess I don't know if it's a day or two ago. 4 governance issues for the roundtable all closed and were approved. The first, which would be interesting because this is going to be the format, or at least it'll probably evolve, but topics for January were decided by this governance approach. So the first topic in January next week is going to be the request for analysis, that basically you will say, hey, I'm interested in this project. Can you give me an analysis? And maybe there will be a price analysis, but definitely there will be a fundamentals analysis. Next is CBDCs. So that'll be the second week of January. Third week of January will be health and or healthcare related to blockchain. And the fourth week of January will be journalism. So we'll have to make sure Ross is here for that at least. And let's see here. Another governance issue is that we're going to add a segment at the beginning where the hosts will cover the topic of the week, speculation, things related to that, completely unrelated to the question. So we could bring up stuff that might make sense, that people should be interested in about projects and what's going on there. And sometimes that won't apply, and then we won't do it. The next was that we did approve an hour-and-a-half show so that we won't get cut off at the beginning, which is good in many ways. And we can also reverse that if we ever want, or we could make it a 4-hour show if you guys want. The next is we did pass also that we will add another segment that will be current events. So anything in blockchain that we need to talk about, I kind of thought we should propose that, because if we're setting these topics a month in advance, we might get into the third or fourth week, and it might be covering something when something monstrous is happening in the blockchain world that we really need to probably cover. So that's there. And so you want these lot tokens because you can help us weigh in on these various issues, especially because we don't even know what we're going to try to change with this, but it'll be pretty cool. So theme for this week is end of year review and looking forward to 2022. So there is no, like in this case, there is nothing really that those two segments would match with this. So that'll start next week. So I guess, do we go straight to the questions, or do you guys want to talk about anything first?
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year indeed. Just about. Yeah. I hadn't thought of stuff to talk about in the beginning, but I mean, there was a lot of things that happened this year. But we're recapping what we talked about this year, right? Where's the guidelines?
Anything you guys want. It's totally open. This is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What makes sense?
Well, we did have an Anything Goes episode this year, so I guess by by that avenue, anything. I don't know. I just think that
glad that it was only 2 weeks to stop the curve and everything got back to normal.
yeah, man, and I'm glad that
was like 2 years ago, Sean.
What?
Yeah.
I'm glad that people are not only speculating on price for cryptocurrency anymore while we're talking about bizarro universe things that happened this year. I'm glad that people are looking at the world changing implications of this technology and not so much what personalities are saying and what ex first ladies are selling NFTs and things like that. I love the way that the internet is just the internet and people just don't call blockchain and scary terms like crypto anymore. They just call it money and the internet. I'm being sarcastic, but that's kind of where I see things going. And this year was special for that kind of stuff in that, a lot of things rose to the top as far as awareness that at least something's changing. I feel like the previous year or maybe 2 years ago, our industry was like nowhere near as mainstream as it is today.
Can I ask you guys? I mean, it's hard. Like, say, if you're into history, it's hard to quite judge or evaluate current times. It's usually you usually need. In fact, I used to say when I was younger, history shouldn't even be considered, let alone judged by people who lived during that period. You should try to record as best you can the facts. But the fact everything is colored. You have too much emotion in what you lived through to really judge whether this president was great or whether that event mattered.
And history is compressed by time, so we tend to think of the Civil War and the Revolutionary War in U.S. history as being fairly close together because we learned them a semester apart in history class. Mm-hmm. But the reality is there were barely people who lived through both.
Right. Well, and that's why, I mean, that's why I want to know. And that's why, by the way, why I love classical history, because like if you go to, university and take a British history versus ancient history, it's night and day, because ancient history, you don't get a bunch of detail. You get this big thing happened. This big thing happened. You go to British history and it's just like so many details. It's horrible.
Well, okay.
So 2020 versus 2021, because 2020 seemed crazy when it was happening. 21 seems less crazy to me, but I don't know if that's what. Well,
I mean, when you think about near history, though, right? Like there are things like we've all been involved with the crypto space for no longer than, right?
Yeah.
How many years? No longer than 2008, right? At the earliest possible. And pretty much nobody was in that early. Over time, we've got a little bit more, but like there's a history of this space. And I think that's kind of an interesting point. Austin and I often talk about how there's a history of everything.
And to speak to the history of the crypto space, I find it very interesting when you compare the history of the crypto space to what was going on at the time, and what was happening in 2008.
Yeah,
financial collapse. What's happening in 2021? Financial mess. Like this space is, to a large extent, a reaction to what's going on in the rest of history, I guess.
That's a good point, Austin, because I think that's you said it. You kind of illustrated what I was trying to say.
I was about to say that he's kind of melding your point and Austin's point together. That's, to me, one of the biggest things that blockchain has done this year. We've had so many monumental changes, with attacks on freedom, with other things, with, the election, all that. And everyone's like, oh, there's this terrible problem. What could happen? How could we fix this? And in so many instances, it's like, have we not been telling you about blockchain and how this works? And so I think it's really, when it comes to awareness, like you were saying, Dave, that these crazy things that have happened have really brought blockchain to the forefront.
I will say you have now senators citing Bitcoin for the reason that it literally exists, and not because the speculative, oh, this is horrible. It was literally
that's huge.
We're printing too much money.
Enormous.
this is done
yeah.
right. Yeah, that's amazing.
I even heard on the most recent congressional testimonies that they had some hearings about it last week while Christmas was happening. And I saw this Reason compilation where they made fun of it, right? But one of the dudes actually said something smart, which was, if the internet were, under purview of nothing but the IRS's tax authority, we would be stuck with dial-up to this day, and nothing would work like it's supposed to. And he's starting to edge towards the notion that, this is a protocol like email. And what people are going to do with it is, maybe first financially related, but not necessarily all. And that's kind of huge.
Yes. And that's why I say that liberty, the reason it exists is it's a liberty response to what's going on in the world. Liberty focused response, I should say. So, and people lose sight of that too often, and it leads to the regulators losing sight on it, because they can point to Twitter and say, "Look, it's not about liberty; it's about this, which is what we regulate." And that's not why I'm here, right? So it's not a hugely negative thing that people can create wealth. That's a good thing, but anyway, whatever.
And it's not something that's just happening with technology and blockchain and digital stuff too. I've seen my analog low-tech friends, right? We've had conversations. I went over Christmas dinner to a friend's house, and they're homesteading now. This isn't something they were doing before. But I went out and talked to my brother, not my brother. I have a brother named Kyle and a friend named Kyle. My friend Kyle. And, I hadn't seen him. I love this guy, and here's why. I walk up to him. He's in his chicken coop. He's keeping chickens and, he's homesteading a little bit there now. I walk up to him, Kyle, long time no see, man. How you doing? He was like, hey, how you doing? I said, yeah, thinking about doing what you're doing. Seems like a good idea the way things are going. And then the second thing he said was, yeah, we're going belly up like Russia, right? And this is a guy that's completely analog, has a cell phone, and that's about it. And he gets it, and he sees it, and he sees that, some of the same people at the beginning of the pandemic were saying, oh, I guess we're just on our own, huh? Because even the overreaction to a lot of people was reacting to the wrong thing and benefiting the wrong people and bailing out the, not normal citizens, but people who have connections and things like that. So I think it's across the board, and it's not just blockchain, that this year a lot of people have just kind of, I don't know about woken up, but taken a step back and said,
It seems to me that the age that people are waking up has been reduced. Because usually it's it's the your uncle who's much older that is
that's a good point too. It isn't always somebody with a Vietnam hat on or some kind of like a grumpy old veteran or something like that.
Maybe that's a part of history that nobody ever looked at. That,
totally is.
True.
When we get to the younger and younger generation waking up, you get to the things like the 60s, when we have radical change because everyone's on board. Maybe that's the thing.
The danger is.
I appreciate the fact that Dave had called someone an analog friend. That is amazing. I think the really important thing to remember is life.
I think really important.
I have people that still, like I told you, they still say the computers and do this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my analog friend.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the important thing to remember is we've been talking, and everybody's been talking, and we've been educating, right? We constantly have to come back to the idea that the progress we've seen is not progress because progress happens just because it just rolls out like that. It happens because of the efforts of people teaching and talking about it and conveying the right things and, politely and delicately and, in a friendly, inviting manner, correcting wrong-headed thought. We've done that on this show all, since we started it. And I think there's a lot of that going on, probably way more than we've seen or know about. And I think that's probably the driving force. But I just wanted to circle back to,
well, that's a really good point. Is being, what I do is just so much, evangelism when it comes to blockchain and crypto, and it's been very frustrating, for a long time. That. Especially the people that you're close to, that you care about, and you're like, you got to get this, man. They're like,
because we come off like
money, monopoly money. You're a funny guy, Sean.
Well, that the way a lot of us do it is you just plant a seed, and you have to be kind of passive about it. It's like, look,
this year,
I'm telling you this. I'm
this year's
telling you
been
this.
so much. It's been phenomenal. How many people are like, hey, did you know about this? I'm like, yeah, I think I told you about that about 18 months ago. You know, and they're like, oh, man, I didn't really get this. I didn't understand it. Do you know this? Like, yeah, the biggest thing was when the those checks went out. That's when everybody was like, hey, they just printed up all this money and gave it to us.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know,
Why do I pay
does this
taxes?
really work?
You can just print this stuff?
Yeah.
All right. Straight to the topics, right? So here, wait a minute. I can't see that on here. First topic. Jacob Wayne, question. What was the biggest surprise in crypto from 2021, and how did it affect you? I'll let someone start with that.
I can go first and be quick, actually, because the biggest surprise to me was China's Bitcoin mining transition and banning Bitcoin mining in China. I didn't see it coming. I knew they were doing the the digital yuan. I knew they were doing the CBDC and the social credit scores and all that stuff. I did not, for some reason, I didn't expect them to ban Bitcoin. I thought that they were going to hang on to it because they understood how it's, like a version of force projection, So I feel like they might have screwed up with that. I don't know. But I can, in hindsight, see that they really just apparently really want everybody to use their system so that they can, control everything, which makes a little bit of sense.
Conspiracy thought on that now.
Yeah.
You remember when the U.S. banned gold? Took it all.
Well, I wasn't here,
and
but
then
I
raised the
remember
price.
reading about it.
So it was a huge scam. They took all the gold that was at a certain price. Once they got it all, and they're like, hey, we have all the gold. Guess what? It's worth 5 times more. So what if, because China was one of the biggest purchasers, just the people of Bitcoin, what if they made it illegal to confiscate it? And because they have the ability to say, hey, give us this Bitcoin or we'll kill your family or put them in a work farm.
That's a good point.
They have things that they will do that other countries won't do and can't do.
And maybe that's why I didn't think about some of it, because there's
and they've already, we know they've been buying it.
Never imagine.
That's the thing, that we know that they've been buying it. So they have a store of it, and they have the most people on the planet that were already buying more Bitcoin than other countries. So literally, it seems like a way to get.
So maybe the story's not over there. Maybe it's not as simple as them just banning it.
I don't think so, because like you said, it didn't really make that much sense.
So much of it is like people trumping up and overblowing reports of like, how like the FOMC, every time they meet, they read through their minutes, and it includes a statement of their mission and all of their recent policy decisions. And it's like this boilerplate that they slap at the beginning of a meeting that nobody really pays that much attention to. I think there's a lot of that goes on in China too, in their bureaucracy, and that we take it out of context and go, oh, their government official said this, when like, it's sort of like asking somebody what the latest Fed minutes said. Like, they're going to be like, I don't fucking know. Why should I care?
I did just read what was written about what happened, as best I could. So,
well, I remember they've had it banned forever and ever, and they would go back and forth, but the people would always say, yeah, that's not really enforced. It's not really a real thing.
It was always
but my point is, if they made that law, then they have the ability to pull that card out at any time if they find out how much Sun has.
Oh, by the way, give me that.
Yeah.
It's illegal.
Say, hey, it's against the law, you need to give us that money. Kind of like, oh, hey, we're getting pulled over for going 3 miles over the speed limit.
Yeah.
It's like, that's illegal. It's not really illegal. Come on. And like, no, it is. Here's a ticket. Because the city needs revenue or whatever it is. They have that ability.
The difference there is that whenever you have something that's not really enforced in the U.S., like speeding a little bit, you might get a citation, but you say the wrong thing on Facebook and people show up to your door to carry you to prison in China. This is what we've seen.
That's my point. We don't think about the way that the tools, it's terrible to use that word, but the tools that they'll use for enforcement are completely out of our mindset.
You think China's going to mine it again? Oh, sorry, Greg.
I would just add that like the Chinese people are different from China, the government. And, they have a long history of kind of, familiar to Western audiences, rebelliousness against encroaching authority. Like, there's this old proverb that I like to drag out. I can't say it in Chinese, so I'm sorry for Chinese listeners, but heaven is high and the emperor is far away. which basically means the center of power is so far from me, and I am doing something so minuscule compared to the mass that nobody's going to pay attention to me. So I'm going to do what I want.
I mentioned that in one of the Den replies that, and I read this article a decade ago in Reason, that there's some province in China that is over the mountains and way far away from Beijing that is more libertarian than most places anywhere else in the world. They build their own roads. You can pretty much anything goes as long as you can pay for it. And the officials kind of leave alone because it's too far away. Who cares? And super interesting that I've heard that some of the miners went there. And they didn't name it by name, but that they did some of that.
I read that some of it just stayed.
Yeah. And the fact that the other thing about the Chinese government being different than the Chinese people, the other thing that people don't quite get, and I'm no expert there, right? But the fact that it's such a strange thing that it's not like analyzing what happens in French politics or something, that the army is controlled literally by that party, right? It isn't it is the party controls. It's not an army of the government of China. It is an army of the party, and that party has all these factions in it that are both family based and other that are fighting. Literally, I guess what you would maybe consider an undercurrent of civil war constantly, where they will literally kill each other, right? So it's this weird thing there where you have to take that, and how does that color this analysis of why they banned? It could be that that other group has a lot more Bitcoin, so it's like, okay, right, let's hurt them by basically putting them in exile. I don't know.
Or maybe they just offshored a bunch of their capacity,
right?
And didn't actually divest themselves of any ownership interest in a ploy to say, "Oh, look, China's banning it." Like, there's a lot of message crafting that comes out of that regime.
Yeah,
there's a lot of weird stuff about that now I'm thinking about. Like, there was an actual fight between India and China, but they were in this weird demilitarized zone where they weren't allowed to have weapons. So the Chinese soldiers didn't have weapons, and the Indian soldiers didn't have weapons, and they killed huge amounts of each other with concrete rocks and rebar, and it was just brutal. And I mean, it was a lot of them killed, but it wasn't like, it didn't seem to be government versus government because there was no weapons, there was no
bar fight.
Yeah, it was just this giant, brutal, like a hand-to-hand, massacre. And
rebar against broken bottles.
Yeah, they were like with rocks and broken concrete, and they just they beat each other to death. And I thought it was so weird that like both sides of the government didn't do anything. But if you shot one guy, it would be like, it's a huge attack. It's an act of war.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, depending on, it reminds me of the fight in Anchorman. Like, the guy with the trident.
It was literally like something crazy like that.
So something else that surprised me about this year, guys, and I want to get your takes on it. The rise of totalitarianism in the West. How did that affect crypto? Like, Australia is like a prison colony right now. There are people literally, being shot with rubber bullets in the street for, voicing what should be a guaranteed human right to them. This has been global and endemic to Western democracies everywhere. How much do you guys think that has affected crypto adoption? Because I think it's probably been the biggest surprise for me, and I think it's a substantial mover.
I think it's yet to be seen, because I think it will affect adoption radically.
Yeah, I agree with Joe.
Right? Because it's something that's so obvious to everyone, and most normies are still kind of trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Other than the languages and the way and the people themselves, when you watch a video clip of someone in China being their door being opened and forced entry by law enforcement because of a post they made, or you see a good guy chained up to a school table because he made a post against the police or the government in China. And then you look at the stories in Britain. What's different? It's the same damn thing. You could get arrested in Britain for doing something, and typically it'll be race related or something else, but they'll arrest you. They'll put you in prison where you'll get killed. there's some crazy stuff going on.
Just
in
go
the US.
on Rumble and search COVID and brutality, and you will see examples from every Western democracy. And
you look at like
actually don't do that because
that was
it's
very
oppressive.
surprising to me, Greg. That the levels in the United States. One of the craziest things was at the beginning, the governor of New Jersey was on a news show, and he was asked, so people can't go to church on Sunday, and they can't have a prayer meeting in their own house, but they can go to the liquor store. And he's like, when did you decide, or when did you decide that it was okay to turn off the Bill of Rights or to take these away? And then the governor of New Jersey said, hey man, that's above my pay grade.
Government
infallibility
is a jealous religion, man.
Is it now? That's something he doesn't
like,
have to concern himself with. I didn't see that interview. I'll have to go look it up. But
so long ago. It was the beginning when they first did it. And he was like, how? And then to see it was Canada, and when it comes to religious stuff, because that's like what we're founded on, man. We're founded on, hey, your religion's weird. You just don't, you can do it. Just as long as you're not hurting anyone, to just, but that's, and the whole thing of cancel culture has pissed me off since the old PC days, because our country was founded on offensive people. Literally, came from different countries. Are like, whatever you do, it offends me, and offends the government, offends us. Don't do it. So they came to America. It's like, you are free to be offensive, just don't infringe on any other people. That was it. You had the. I remember I figured this out when I was like 6 years old, and I thought racists were stupid, but I wanted them to talk, because when crazy people talk,
you know who they are.
It exposes how crazy they are. Right. Also, if you don't talk about it, I remember in high school, people that were like, you could tell their families were racist, but they weren't. Me and a friend of mine were talking about going to the lake, and this girl looked at me and said, "Wait, you can swim?" And he was like, he thought it was a slur. I was like, "Dude, she doesn't know." And he's like, "You don't think black people could swim?" She's like, "No, I didn't." And it was just, but she wouldn't have been able to say anything, and there wasn't that dialogue. It wouldn't have changed. And I've seen it so many times in my lifetime. Just when people are allowed to talk, you can change their mind, right? Because you can just ask them a question, and they can't answer, and then they do an introspective look and like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense.
I think the people silencing everybody know this. I think it's exactly what they want. That's my take.
And I'll tell you the thing I wasn't surprised with. Now I am surprised at how fast it developed in what should be, in the Western democracies, right, is the divide and conquer thing. That it's obvious, it's an absolute obvious thing, and it's, in my opinion, it's being applied everywhere, which is why I think crypto needs to get its act together, because they're basically, they've kept us from the adoption we should have seen in our industry by dividing us, by basically saying, and some of it is self-inflicted, obviously, but tribal stuff, but there's a lot where they push stuff. And then I guess I will bring up somewhat similar. The thing that has surprised me is the fight back from Ripple and XRP and that community. And I was never in that community, but I'm impressed with what they're doing, because they're actually bringing it out, and I expected it way sooner for an industry that's founded on the principles that it is. The fact that it has strayed so far, largely from those principles, enough to say, "Look, I'm making money. I don't care. I want regulation. I want regulation." They were saying that so early. I'm like, "You sure you want that? Because that's going to stifle everything." Because and not that you, anyway.
Well, people just get hung up on their functional
larger plan that's been going on forever. Everything is us versus them. Everything, and for people who have an ounce of intelligence, you can just watch the episode of The Simpsons where the two aliens run, and they're like, "What are you going to do? It's a two-party system. Yeah. You're going to elect one," and then they did, and they were all enslaved. It's so even as a kid, the Coke versus Pepsi, everything my whole life, if you step back, you can see it's designed to be an us versus them. And then you just want to really be on the winning team, and that's what people are. And people, I know they're intelligent people. Like, you're a Democrat or Republican? I was like, no, I'm an anarchist. You're like Antifa? No. I believe people should have a garden, and like free themselves from government. And
Well, those words don't mean the same to other people as they mean to you either. So it's sometimes
yeah, but they're all, but they don't understand.
translation.
I could see you say libertarian. I'm really much more libertarian.
Yeah.
So what is that, like a Democrat or a Republican?
Yeah.
They just don't get it. And you can even say they're all
big L versus little L is the other thing, because the big L is not, doesn't always live up to what it's supposed to live up to by word, and then you have left right. The fact that we're using a terminology from the French Revolution to describe various abstract ideas today is stupidity, and it's because there are two of them, so we'll use that, left and right. Anyway,
have you guys ever watched This Video Will Make You Angry by CGP Grey?
Yes.
Yes.
But you made me watch it.
It is probably my favorite video on the internet, and highly recommend it. But it talks about the effects that go into why controversial ideas do so much better than ideas that people agree on, and why it's easier to propagate those, and why somebody who's trying to propagate an idea might frame it in a way as to make it controversial to keep it from fizzling out.
Yeah.
Really fantastic video.
Yep.
Strong.
And I'll tell you, anybody who's ever led a team, if you're leading a development team in a government contract, I've done this many times, the easiest way to get that team on the same page and to deliver what you have to deliver is to find a common enemy. And typically it's the testers or it might be the management, right? But one way or another, you have to galvanize that team. And it's hard to do it on a positive principle.
Or you have one part of the team against the other part of the team.
That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Yeah. That's
what's an infosec, red team, blue team.
Yeah.
I used to have a boss. He used to take us into his office, but he would separate us by age. So it was I was a financial advisor. He'd bring me in. He's like, "Hey man, you should be kicking Steve's ass, and you're not, And he's talking crap about you, and there's no way he should be, salesman of the month. It really. And then he would bring Steve in and tell Steve the same thing. And I could tell Steve would come out of the office and be like looking at me like, "You piece of crap." I was like, "Man, so and he would do it to like the middle-aged guys and the retired sergeant majors. He would bring them in next, but they would come out. That guy's so stupid. I was like,
I still tell you, the indicator for me when all is lost is when they successfully separate us by earlobes. When you hate, I don't know what earlobe type I am, but whatever it is, I'm going to hate the others. That's when we'll know. Okay. Next up,
I didn't answer this question yet. Right? I didn't answer my answer. So what has affected me the most, and what's most surprising, is that Craig Wright is Satoshi, and I lost a huge bet. So
now, did you take current? Is what's the authority in that bet? Is it legal or is it crypto? I mean, I think we should have to sign it.
Legal. First. He was in court and someone called him Satoshi or something. That's a joke, man. Wow. It's a joke. I didn't lose any money.
That's a bad bet, Sean. It's like, because you bet on the legal system.
Yeah, right.
Ooh, yeah, man. Because lawyers, man, they'll twist stuff, right? Lawyers, accountants.
Yeah, you hate lawyers and accountants. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Lawyers are super lost.
Well, that's one of the underlying reasons that I love blockchain so much, is because it simply makes it more difficult to cheat.
Yeah, it doesn't fix it, but it makes it much more visible.
Yeah, well, it gives you the tools to fix at least certain situations within, down to some edge cases. Okay, is we covered that? Are we gonna go to the next one? Foost. Okay, if you could go back and do one thing differently from 2021, what would it be and why? I'll answer quick while you guys are thinking, because my answer is going to be lame. It basically that it's too early for me to know. I'll know in 3 years. Like,
I would
Right.
have just sold stuff at the top, man. That's a simple thing. Like, hey, right.
Yeah,
Being here, man.
and more than that, I would have probably held on to my. I had a platinum Divi masternode that I don't have anymore, and I'm working on getting it back. But in hindsight, I probably should have kept that.
Yeah,
Platinum, yeah, that's pretty good, man.
I'm with Joe. I think my answer, I'll give it to you in a couple of years. But in general, if I like where I am, I tend not to look back with regrets and say, I would have done this different because all the cascades that come out of that. It's like, I'm good now.
Yeah,
it's just the money. One thing I did do that I really mad at myself about is I gave this cop my social security number.
Oh no!
And
wow.
And I didn't let him take a picture. He wanted to take a picture of me, and that's when I was like, yeah. So my nephew, I was over at a friend of mine's house, and I had had a couple of drinks, so he brought me home, and we were in the driveway, and my neighbor said something to him, and he said something to my neighbor, and they argued or whatever, and I was like, just go, Tony. So he left. I would come in the house literally 5 minutes later as there's a knock on the door. And I was like, did they call the police? Sure enough, there's two cops there. This really, really young cop and this lady. And this guy was super young. And he's like, yeah, what happened? I was like, what do you mean? Was there an altercation? And there was a disturbance. And I said, dude, it was 30 seconds at most. And I like explained, I got out of the car. And they said like two or three things to each other on each other's property. And then he left. It was 30 seconds. Why are you here? What is, And then he's like, okay, well, can I see your driver's license? And I was like, because it's late. And then he started asking weird questions. And then, I'm answering the question. I'm giving it to him. And I'm thinking, I really want to just tell this guy to go. And then he asked me to come in. I said, no, man. This is weird. I said, I honestly would not think you're cops, if you weren't just such a young kid. And then he said, okay, well, can I get this? And he's like, what's your social security number? I was like, are you trying to obtain credit in my name? What are you doing? He goes, oh, it's just for the form. I was like, it's not a real answer, right?
Weird.
That's not a real answer. It's for the form.
Yeah.
I don't know
Here's
why.
the question, Sean. Did you report this to?
Well, I'll tell you. So then he said, "Oh, it's just part of the form," and I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You know who I am." I gave him my driver's license and all. But then he asked me for my birthday too, which is on the driver's license. And then he said, "Okay, here, can we get a photo of you?" And I said, "No."
That's so weird.
That's weird, man. No. So then they left, and then I shut the door. I was like, "Why did I give them all that information?" I just was so mad at myself for being a pussy. And not standing up for my rights just because I was tired.
Sean, he was probably just an incognito fan. Like he probably was making a shrine to you back home. Did he ask for some hair too?
No. Actually, no, but it was like that. It was like he was going to ask for a blood sample or something. It was so weird. So I asked my son about it. My son was a major in law enforcement. He wanted to go to be a marshal. And then he got out of it because he didn't like where law enforcement has been going the past, while he was in school. But he told me, oh yeah, there's this new database that all police are that they've been working on for a while, and now they want to get as much information as they can, just to create your file and to put it in there. They would literally ask for like a blood sample or something. So that's why, because I've talked to police my whole life. That these questions were so out of left field, and he's like, yeah, they'll try to get as much information as they can.
So I wonder if that was real about this is for the form then, is the form for the new database?
It's probably index or
it's not really an answer.
Literally, they want to have a picture of me, a current like every time you have any kind of interaction.
Yeah. So the cop was not trying to steal your identity, is what you're telling me.
No, but your driver's license can sometimes be 8 years old.
Right.
Like if you renew it online one time that's not a new picture. So they want to just constantly keep that stuff updated. So every time you have an interaction, they're going to try to push it further and further.
And you are more likely to give in if you're exhausted, if it's late, if you're tired. That's been the time. I haven't had a whole lot of interaction with the cops, and when
can I say something related to blockchain about this? That theoretically, a solution that could be provided is right now some states. That's why it's different in multiple states, which is a good thing, by the way. There's some market there, whether we know it or not. It's hard to tell which states are better at it because nobody really measures it, but they do monetize that in various ways. So they collect more info. Not that they'll necessarily sell it, but it might be a political monetization that you could effectively plug that in if the citizenry were aware of both the reality of what's happening and what can be done. That you could say, we could monetize that to our benefit for liberty, and also for legitimate reasons, be able to find the bad guys that have murdered somebody or something.
I'm with you on that.
So you're saying when they asked for my social security number, I should have asked them to give me like $5?
Well, it's like, I have a website you can go to. Here's the website, and here's a charge, right? Yeah, something like that.
Just for folks in the audience, I just wanted to throw in some like lawyer advice because I once upon a time wanted to be a criminal defense attorney. Police officers are trying to get promoted to detective. These guys are investigators. They're gathering facts. You are required to cooperate with them to a limited degree, to which they need to dispel what they call a reasonable suspicion. You only have to identify yourself and answer questions as truthfully as they can verify from what they've already observed, but you don't have to do anything more. You don't have to help them. So remember that, and just be nice to them and say, I understand you're trying to do your job because they're trying to get promoted and they're trying not to get chewed up by their boss. But I'm going to and I'm going to cooperate with you as much as I can. But I'm here to protect my own rights as well. And there's no criminal act, there's no criminal assumption they can draw from that. So just remember that you can say, I choose not to speak, and they really can't do anything about it.
Can I offer up that is literally the direct realization that it's the unseen marketplace. It is the game within the game that if it's a regulator, they're trying to get maybe not a promotion, maybe a promotion. A lot of regulators are trying to get a job at a law firm, for big money. So they have to do, you're talking various government agencies, state and federal. That's what they do. And it's not necessarily, that it's a planned thing, but it is inherent in the rules. It is, the same reason that, and there are, I've done government contracting. I was always surprised at the things that are not necessarily nefarious, but are very odd on the way that if you want your career to advance, there are certain known rules that it's like, you don't get higher up if you don't do this, which means I need to move from this place to this place to this place. I can't stay in one place too long, blah, blah, blah. You have to, work in different areas. And it's a strange thing that most people don't know. And yet it affects how they interact with what are the citizens who are actually paying them.
Yes.
It's really strange.
And what you're describing, here's a spicy comment, maybe. What you're describing is what after years in the Navy, active duty, is why I left. Really, it came down to the way that that has become the case in active duty military as well, to the detriment, in my opinion, of our national security. Because I worked in weapons department with weapons systems and with people that wanted to get contracts after they left the Navy with Raytheon or with Lockheed Martin or with this or that. And even within the ranks, it's often the case where what you're talking about, whenever you're changing from one duty station to the next one or picking your next ship or whatever, there's always this career sort of like, it makes sense. You want to do what's good for your career, but it was literally like, if you don't do this, you're not going to advance, even though there's nothing saying that that's necessary. It's like, if you don't like compete against your fellow sailor, your shipmate, if you don't compete against them, and if you don't try to like edge them out on stuff, you're not. It just felt corporate. It felt like cutthroat and not camaraderie. not like
Right.
What's that movie I watched before I joined the military and thought it was going to be like A Few Good Men? Not that one.
You can't handle it.
What is it? It was one of those war movies. All of them have this idea of everyone looking out for themselves, and it was getting to the point where that's like the rarity. Everybody was kind
when
of
it comes
like
to
personal
promotions in the military. I think that's the most shining example of government stupidity. Especially the Navy, because the Navy is the worst. Because I remember my best friend. He's a Navy SEAL, and he wanted to make like E7 or something. He's like, oh, I can't because there's only 2 in the unit, or there's only 2 in our unit, and we can't have any more, so they just don't promote you. So you're stuck there till one guy dies or leaves, rather than you just doing a good job, making that rank, and then going somewhere else.
Sounds like Congress.
You're literally stuck there. He went on to be a spy.
And
There's
can I
not free
bring it
market.
back to
There's some
Ted?
kind of market in personal favors going on.
I can market Ted. I can't remember if it was in the 90s, I believe, when, and I think it might have been the Navy, switched from proprietary OSs, and the reason, or I'll say OSs is a little more generic than that maybe, but the reason was they wanted off the shelf so it would be cheaper, but they literally switched to NT. They didn't go with Unix or Linux. They went to NT, and there were occasions where vessels were basically down because it's freaking Windows. Would you run a military
screen of death on your?
Yeah, we had
like
Windows. We had different versions of, and when they did go Unix and stuff, they went like HPUX. They went HPUX. They went something that's.
Why is that? Because it's a lobbyist. It's the military industrial.
Well, it's that, and literally conversations that I've had with these people, and this is not the 90s. This is 20 freaking. Well, I was a tech rep for Marmac, and this would have been like 2010 or something, and they were moving from HPUX to something. I guess I won't name it, but it was an open source Unix, right? So the conversation we were having in the building where this is being developed was from people who were connected to people that made decisions, were like, maybe we shouldn't do this because if it's open source, that means anybody can look at the code and find vulnerabilities. Like there was still that mentality of closed source is proprietary is better because it's a secret.
Like they literally had not absorbed the lesson that they were being less secure by using closed source thing.
And so still in 2010, I don't know, since then to now, a decade later, I don't know, but that perception has still not evolved.
Blame the contractor as a convenient excuse for the ascendant bureaucrat type of thing going on. That was kind of my experience with some of the more tough to deal with elements of anybody you're working with on a state contract, or I assume same for federal contract. They like to have in their back pocket the we hate those assholes too, boss kind of attitude towards some of their contractors.
Yeah, built-in finger point. So next question.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know where we are on the questions right now.
Or on more time. So see here, Chad. What are the advantages of a bear market, and what are some superior ways Dragon and Matter holders can have a winning mindset during any potential bear markets and take advantage for when things flip?
Ooh, real fast, can I respond quickly to the last one, guys? I promised them the responses that I would actually say something semi-profound. I would say that I would probably pull the trigger on my beliefs more. I spent so many days thinking, is it really worth the gas to get this ENS domain? I love this project. I know they're great. I know they're going to be around. Had I pulled those triggers, it would have been way more ENS token when they did that airdrop. I would have had more governance rights, more all that stuff. And I didn't do it because I wasn't sure whether or not I really was gonna pull the trigger on my beliefs, which is great project. I should get this because it's available if I can, some type of stuff. But I'm going to be doing a lot more pulling the trigger on my beliefs.
Yeah, I want to second that. Some of my regrets that I won't get into come from you knew it was the right call. Why were you scared to do it? That kind of thing.
Exactly.
Mine, I guess I could say I'm usually I either call it, if it's a belief, I'll call it too early. That's an issue I have. And if it's If it's just something I know that, you know, like maybe more speculative, I'm too busy. I'm thinking, maybe it won't be that big of a deal. I don't have time. I have too much to do, so I don't do something that I could have made money on. But that's not, you know, it's like whatever. It's not that world changing in the end. Okay, so what about this one? Bear market. I will say, I look at it the same as with startups. That it's a known thing that a bear market in the startup world, even prior to crypto, is valuable because usually it makes people build. The issue is with crypto, it's a really rough thing because if you're in a bear market in crypto, it means any little, you know, I got called a caveman last week because somebody got banned from our Telegram, right? It was like, I don't even know which group in Telegram he was banned from. I don't even go to Telegram anymore, rarely. And this dude was calling me out as, oh, he looks like a caveman, and he doesn't know what he's doing. And he mentioned some other guy in crypto that looks like a caveman, but his token is up. So I saw.
You're right. If
like,
the numbers
like,
up,
you know what? It's like
people can do no wrong almost.
These people can go fuck themselves because it's like, look, I'm going to keep building. I don't give a shit. It's like, and if you're speculating on these tokens because you think that it's like, oh, I'm going to get rich overnight. That's not the goddamn point. I bought Mana as an example in their pre-sale. And I was like, oh, it's like that was, I look like a brilliant person unless you look at the rest of my portfolio and you see all of them that failed, right? Which is a typical thing. It's like a shotgun. It's like, look, I like the idea of this. They might not execute. Timing might not be right. The world might, you know,
that's
Facebook
the risky
might
part.
not announce a name change to Meta, right? It's a crazy thing that they had nothing to do with Facebook doing that, but it had an effect.
I personally think it's time to retire the notion of bull and bear markets. I mean, Keynes was wrong about animal spirits to begin with, but setting all that aside, like, we know it's individual action. We know that all this stuff is happening asynchronously. Saying it's a bull or a bear market is like saying I'm going to get caught up in the FOMO, I'm going to get caught up in the FUD, and follow along with the herd. And, you know, crypto is about individual choices being
that's the super old argument, right? Though, man. That's the do things just become a self-fulfilling prophecy? You know, because people FOMO or get FUD.
It's on the internet. It's on the blockchain. Just take the time to do your own research and do what you want, as opposed to follow what seems to be the consensus on Twitter or something.
Can I say something I hope is considered as maybe profound? And I've said it before. Is that, and you know, it'll be meaningless until it happens, and if it doesn't happen, nobody will give a shit anyway. But my foundational principle is that the fundamentals matter so much more than the technical analysis of, oh, here's a pattern that I can draw, right? The fundamentals matter because that's where, if you want to look at it from a money side, that's where life-changing family wealth will come from. Because everything we've seen, you know, Bitcoin to 60, all that shit, Bitcoin to 100 is nothing but a freaking blip if you consider the actual ability for this technology to change everything, including efficiencies. And it's more than software. We know how software has changed the world.
Well, and creating new kinds of wealth nobody can freaking imagine, right?
Right. What we do not yet know as a species is how much effect this behavioral incentive can change everything, and that's what I'm waiting for. And I don't know how long it'll take, but at some point it's going to surprise everybody because everybody's like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, and at some point you want people to stop shitting on me for trying to find out. You know,
and that's why the way I can prove it to you is you look at when Bitcoin hit 20 in what is it, 2018 or whatever. Everybody's like, it's a bubble. It's tulips, right? And we know, okay, just a couple years later, it's just triple that. And it doesn't even go as far as we think because it's being suppressed because the people with money still don't freaking get it. And it's not just, Bitcoin fixes that, because that's bullshit. Bitcoin does one thing. It was supposed to do a few things, and they've killed that. Well, but real quick here. The bubble was not a typical bubble, a financial bubble. The bubble was literally the fact that anyone could own it. You didn't have to have friends and live in a San Francisco to be a part of it. And that is why it went to 20 and why it went to 60 and why those numbers are way lower.
Well, Are you guys familiar at all with Hofstadter's law? It's the idea that, you know, whatever you plan, it will take longer than you think it will take to do it, regardless of how much you try to take into account Hofstadter's law. I think there's something similar with new technology and creation of wealth. You can guess at how much wealth this new technology will create, and you're going to fall short, even if you try to take into account what I will call Greg's law.
Yeah, that's like in the Navy, we always gave ETAs. We would figure out how long it took us, like how long should it take to make this repair? And then we would double it and give that to our superiors. And then whenever we got it done sooner, they'd be happy, you know,
Right.
because
how many comet-sized diamond asteroids are floating in the freaking asteroid belt? That is an NFT fractionalized ownership thing waiting to happen as soon as Elon Musk figures out how to tow one back here.
Yeah, you know, in software there is a it's not known, but it's the more formalized the environment, like say if you're doing government contracting, the more any estimate that a developer would give you should be multiplied by pi. And it depends on how formalized that is, but it literally works. And over and over again, I've proven it out. It works. If it's a more flexible, agile environment, it is lower than pi. But pi is, for some reason,
pi is par. Pi is the par.
Yeah. Well, and you know, back to the original question and the advantages of bear markets, and you know, tying this into what you guys were just saying. You know, to me as a developer who's, you know, kind of down in the weeds, not really that concerned about price movement because I see where this is going in the long term, but I also realize the time scale of what long term means there. I find bear markets to have a lot fewer distractions than bull markets. That you know, when the markets are booming and everybody's really excited about all of these new technologies that aren't really living up to the hype, you know, people start getting frustrated and they get annoyed that, you know, fees are too high and things are too slow and this UX sucks. And it's like, yeah, we know we're like, it's going to take us another decade to work all those things out. We'll get there. We will. And maybe not a decade at this, but like, you get the idea. It's like, it's going to take a long time to solve these problems. People during a bear market get really excited about it and they want them solved now. And we're just not gonna.
The funny thing
during
though,
the bear market, people aren't nearly as worried about
but
it.
It works by building on what we've already done, right? Like none of the progress is thrown out for the most part.
And can I tell you too that you know, and the reason I always, and I totally agree with you, right? So don't take it as a disagreement.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
But we've like say at Dragonchain, we've solved tons of those problems. Nobody gives a shit. You know, why? Because it's not the way we wanted them solved. That the people want them solved with dogma. It's like, oh, here is the framing, and I'm only going to consider this a solution. It's like, well, okay,
right. Don't
open that up. And it's like, that's not the solution.
Right?
You're not going to find the solution when you put bounds around it that are silly.
It's amazing, isn't it, that we have people that are so intelligent, that are building technologies that have never existed before. You know, they're sharp folks, but they can't think out of the box still. You know,
yeah,
they can't
perfect example. Go back and look at the Reddit competition, supposed competition.
Oh God!
Tokenization.
Oh yeah.
And you know, we said, look, we're not going to win it. We know we're not going to win it, but this would be pretty good marketing, and it would be interesting, and it'll give us an initiative to document some things that we've never documented, right? And so we proposed something, and we put together a very serious response. It's like 20 or 40.
It was really well done. I was impressed.
And we did that, and we did it really fast. Yeah. And it was all backed with reality. We had
numbers and metrics,
but it was a rigged boondoggle from the start.
And we blew away, like they had constrained theirs. Like, we just want to tokenize this one subreddit, and we just want this functionality, which was meaningless. And by the way, their rules would have allowed it to be totally manipulated. So we were like, okay, we will solve it for real, you know. And we effectively called out what we were building with Den, right? But a little more color to what they wanted, right? And we got called out for, it's like, oh, you guys are brigading. And it was because we were not solving it within the bounds that consensus was able to solve.
So this is where
you've got to shove down people's throats. Nobody should ever worry about anybody's ideas getting stolen, because, you know, great ideas, really good ones, you got to shove them down people's throat if you want them to succeed. And
I want to see if I can roll
that said, Den is definitely the new Reddit. It's way better.
Yeah.
And you guys are going to prove them wrong.
So that's a great illustration of something else that I hadn't thought about until just now. But with Dogma and with people wanting to build things a certain way, one of the things with that contest, people were like, no, this is supposed to be done with Ethereum. And I'm like, okay, but it is, right? It's literally is. And it's the same, but it's not the way that I want to use Ethereum. It's not the way that I want.
Well, it's not even that. It's not the way that I was told that I'm supposed to think about this.
Or that. That's very real too. And that actually is even more
true.
The
people that will repeat that are not the people that are coming up with these on their own. And the Dogma does not work like that. Dogma is, we have to arrange it this way, and we get a culture around pounding this into people's heads, and that's what they believe, and that's the only way that they will accept it. And you create division.
And so what you're talking about is the same thing that, and this is, I swear, we'll get into the question, which is the bull bear market, because I want to say, but I want to say this first. What you described with Ethereum and the Reddit scaling challenge or whatever it was, sideshow, was the same sort of thing that when I found Dragonchain, it was the thing that really hooked me in, because I was somewhat of a maximalist at the time. Right. I was exploring different programs because they're fantastically interesting, but I was still of the no, Bitcoin's it. And that's all that freaking matters, because nothing can be fairly launched. And there's all these other reasons that I ended up softening on, obviously. But the thing with Bitcoin is that Dragonchain also directly uses Bitcoin for something that Bitcoin alone can do really freaking well, or that it was the first one that could do really freaking well, which is security. And I hadn't even thought about the implications of, and this is, from somebody who's not been every year since 2009, but I did start reading about Bitcoin in 2009 when I was in the Navy. And I quit for a while when I got home because I was home. I wasn't on deployment anymore, didn't care. Came back to it later. But it took me until then to realize, and this, I forget, 2 years ago or something, to realize that wait, there's more to it. And even with Bitcoin, it's more than just money. And even with a lot of these technologies that people think that they know how they work, I still didn't quite get I knew you couldn't fake it. And I knew that there were the, anti-counterfeit implications and all that. But I still can't talk to people that are maximalists about that, even though I understand their point and I agree with them, and I still agree with them. But I just want to say no. What counts as using Bitcoin is a wider area of the industry than you think it is. There's a lot of things that are directly using Bitcoin. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, just to get back on the question, was bull market, bear market. I was excited, but maybe I was naive. I was doing these local meetups in town, and bear market, not getting a lot of people, showing up as much for crypto blockchain stuff. Yeah. And then all of a sudden this year, earlier this year, I started getting friends hit me up, calling me, hey Dave, you're the blockchain guy, you're the crypto guy. Hey, I got this friend that's asking me all this, and it was always the same thing. This friend's asking me crypto questions, and I'm just saying, you got to talk to Dave. I don't know. And so I'm like, yeah, cool. Get him to come down to the meeting. And I'm excited. I'm going to meet some new people. We're going to talk about blockchain. And every fucking time it was somebody who shows up because it's been in the news and it's exciting and there's money. And it's like, so what are you into, man? I've been flipping this and that, and I'm into this kind of, I got, I'm into, this level on the thing, and, and it was the distraction, like I think Greg was saying, or Austin, but it was also I put energy into something that I thought was the same as what I was trying to do, but it's a whole different world. It has nothing to do, even though it's the same thing and you're using the same tokens to do your thing. It distracted me from what I was building, until we have what a lot of people think is a bear market again now. And all of a sudden there's more work getting done. So
builders
that is a thing.
Do more work when people aren't distracting them with questions about the price. That is so true. Elon Musk even said it with Tesla, and how he wanted to take it private because the stock benefit to the employees was just this awful distraction. Most people, if they talked about the price of it, were not thinking about building great cars. Right? So if the price is down, people just get back to work. And really great things come when people stop hyping the price. And
I will say that, and this is not advice, obviously, but as an investment strategy, if you want to take a look at it that way, if you look at the fundamentals, you look at the vision, you say, oh, I agree with that. I understand it. It's super interesting to learn, when you're looking at new projects, and say, that's an amazing way to look at this. And I hadn't seen that. And it looks like they could execute. And then you get into it. You either participate, which is ideal. You might buy in, whatever it is, but then you just sit back and let it go. You forget about it, because otherwise you're going to screw yourself by trading, in my opinion. So it's almost like you have to start with the fundamentals and then just be patient as hell.
And it's also,
then, then stuff happens.
It's the kind of person you are too, because I'm the kind of guy who's like maybe it's because of where I'm from, right? Like I grew up out in the middle of nowhere, like outside of even a town or something. But I see Din, and I think like, obviously I think, how can I make money with that? But I'm thinking like, how can I build a business around using this for my business, which is something that I have found so much more success in than like speculative, like throwing my money at stuff at Vegas and like it's a casino or something. And the technicals versus fundamentals, man, the technicals matter a lot when there are no fundamentals. When everyone's just trading on a chart, and everyone has these like strategies that are known, that are shared on YouTube. All right, everybody, when you see this pattern on the chart, do this.
Oh yeah.
Right. So like, yeah, technicals matter a lot, because that's the only thing happening is people looking at a chart and trading. Nothing else happening.
It's just erudite front running, but
they also matter much more, because during a bear market, the majority of trading is done by bots who have no emotion at all. Fundamentals don't matter that much. They don't care about the news. They don't care. They literally just go off of,
moon phases, bro.
Yeah. But I think to the person's question, and one thing to y'all's point is that with crypto projects, there's a lot more interaction between the builders, the founders, and the investors, because like Joe made the point, everyone can get into this. Everyone can get involved in this. Whereas, in the old legacy system, there's not a lot of interaction between people that are, bought into it. But I think the biggest thing that you guys aren't really seeing, and part of that noise in a bear market, people do build more, but scammers walk away and go to something else.
This is true.
That's a huge part of it.
Big.
No one's
right.
no one's getting hit on Telegram everywhere. You don't have to worry about the false identities and people trying to have Twitters with your face on it. It's a lot less.
Very true.
But also it really helped to kill the ICO craze. During the last one, where all people had to do was just throw an idea, a fake team. There was that one they used, like Ryan Reynolds was on the team.
Did anything really great come out of the ICO craze, though? Like, is there anything that's still around that you look at and go, like, holy shit, if it wasn't for people just arbitrarily throwing their money at a crowd fund, it was completely unregulated, would this be here? That's kind of what I wonder about.
No, there's stuff out there. There's things that, like I just earlier was talking about Divi. They had an ICO during I forget what phase it is, but like a lot of things that happened ended up.
There were a lot of projects that were fundamentally sound that were in fact killed by regulation or killed by whatever might have happened after. But there were obviously a lot of crap projects out there.
Yeah.
I can't tell you 2017, 2018 when we launched, how many people, because it was bull market, would come to us wanting to see a pattern. Why? Because this group, they changed their name and it did this, or they did a burn and it did this. And I'm like, it was crazy, because those people come out the woodworks in a bull market because they think they have, this is the pattern, this is how you do it, and it will always be successful.
Here's the gimmicks that have worked in the past.
Right, and all they do is force marketing people to evolve a new message and a new mode, because they spoil it by making it cliche and try to say the old thing.
Probably the biggest one, and it became a joke in the Dragonchain community, was when will you have a what was the name? Damn it. I can't remember the term, because we even had it, it was a joke to us that they wanted us to call a mainnet. It's like, when is Dragonchain gonna have a mainnet? And I'm like, that is not what it's like. Mainnet, that was the thing, because it's like, this project, they said they have a mainnet, and boom,
their mainnet launch is coming in here. Well, I remember, it was ridiculous. Like, they could change the colors on the website and you got a 20% pump.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, "Oh, look at this pump! They changed the colors in the website. Look, this looks so good."
Stupidity. And it's like, I think anybody looking back at that has to think, okay, that was dumb. I don't even if somebody made money, that's just that.
Well, I think another thing is that during the ICO craze, it showed real money what was possible. Like I invested in one of the first, metaverse virtual reality things. It was one of the first ICOs I put into. I think it was called Mark. I don't fully remember, but it was what all the stuff is now. But it didn't take off. But it was you could see that was such a good idea. And I think a lot of times people are like, we want to do this, we want to make this project, but look at our team is great. We have all a sound idea and a great team for it to take off. Look at this piece of shit project. They raised $242 million in like 40 minutes with this, and we can do this. We can do it better. They had no team, they had nothing, but look what they did. So I think that was a big thing that came out of the ICO craze to show what could happen if you had the idea and the team.
Can I tell you too,
Sean? I would add that individual developers came out of the projects that failed, that learned a lot of lessons, and individual creatives came out of those things with the lessons learned of doing it wrong, with the opportunity to waste an assload of money spinning their wheels, not getting success. It created, I think, a fertile ground for the next wave of acceleration and the next wave of really great ideas. That's another really great thing for bear markets, is it sends people back to the drawing board who really need to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. And it's like, and by the way, knowing that people react to, number go up, at that time, I guarantee that a lot of those projects that raised massive amounts had, big money behind it that knew, I'm going to get in, I'm going to get out. And that's all it was, nothing to do with what was being built, but the fact that, I'm going to own a piece, so it's going to pump. And
you have
same
to
thing
know
has happened
that.
with some NFTs. I mean, everybody has to know that, but it's,
and
I'd
especially
like
when
to
the
make a
VCs
point
are
about
trying
a bear
to
market that you guys probably won't like, because I do focus on number go up, like a lot of people do, and I think that the last bear market really showed you people that it is kind of important, because a lot of just really good-hearted developers and builders, like, all right, we got to have this ICO, we got to do this, we'll get some money. We have $300 million in ETH that we raised. We're good. We only needed 100 million to build this the way we want to. We are going to make the best thing ever. And then that $1,000 Ethereum went down to $99. So their war chest and their stores was depleted. They're like, we don't even have enough money to build this in a crappy way. We should have been smarter with these numbers. We should have pulled out. We should have changed it to stable coins. But I think a lot of people just didn't think that it was ever going to end. It's just going up and going up and going up. Ethereum's just going to keep going. There is no cycle. There is no technical analysis, and there are cycles. That's why there's bull and bear markets.
Can I say, when people talk about manipulation, it's not always inside the marketplaces. There is manipulation of some of that stuff, which is fundamental and outside. So there's some weird stuff around that particular point, because that's true, totally true. And yet there's manipulation that occurs in other areas, I'll just say. So
yeah. But as builders, we do like to downplay that stuff, because it does take the wind out of our sails. Let's face it, like when we're building something and the price just plummets, it's like, well, fuck, now everybody's going to be talking shit on this thing instead of there's an element of that. And, so we do tend to, especially on the buildery side, glad hand ourselves a little bit and go, it's not that big of a deal. Just, hashtag biddle spelled wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
there's an element of that.
Yeah. I will tell you, in 2018, Blockchain Seattle. So we had a meetup group, and we were always very well subscribed. It was the fastest blockchain meetup, the biggest blockchain meetup group in the country at its start. And because it was generic, we could talk about mining, we could talk about any crypto. It didn't matter. It was all educational. It was amazing. During 2018, we would have to get local law firms to give us space because we'd have hundreds of people coming to these, in-person events.
Yeah.
Because it was a full market, and it's, so it does affect, and it makes it easier. It makes it easier to get your ideas out there.
That's true. Because like what I was saying, we had a field full of people when it was a really raging market. You know what I mean?
Live by the number, die by the number. That's how it works. So
bottom line is none of us are giving up. That's for sure.
Yes.
We've all been here for too long to call it quits on this thing that we love.
Well, those that are talking, Greg, you were talking about people like spinning off to build their own projects whenever things get bad with the company they're with, or with the project they're with, or whatever. We have next month, I think we're hitting journalism on one of the topics on one of the weeks. Yeah. And I see that in journalism where people will leave a paper or a publication and they just have a blog or something.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what happens when there's a, like a DAO to go to, a news DAO or something instead.
Or like a layer-like ownership system for something a little bit more like Substack would be really interesting.
We need to put a bounty getting greenwalled on that. Was it the third week?
Yeah.
But anyway,
a really obnoxious show on maximalism, but it was disguised as a crypto show.
Very good. Very good. Okay. What's going on? We're going to close it out. What's going on this coming week, Dave?
Yeah. So, this week is our governance call today, later at 3 p.m. Eastern. And we are adding a sort button into the governance so you can see what you have lot to vote on and what you don't, that kind of thing. And wrapping up the year, I think a lot of these shows are just look at what we've done this year. It's what I've been thinking about this week, basically, especially with the show titling the way that it is today, the blockchain show. I think we'll probably end up talking about that on the DEN governance call today, too, if you guys want to tune in later, because there's just been so much. Basically, everything that's there was, when I joined DEN, it was super like a bare. Well, between then and now has been more work done and more features delivered than I would have imagined got pushed through this year. So I'm really stoked about that. I think there's like a lot of big things happen for DEN. So that's what's changing for us, is that we have the tools in place that we can use starting next week to really, really do what DEN was meant to do, and then this whole year basically has been building at a maddening pace.
And by the way, that's one place that at least I and the gods will forgive you for being impatient, is in productivity and progress, right? So because I'm super impatient. It's like, we need more. Okay, Greg.
Okay, first I just want to say to Dave and to you guys with DEN, and to everybody who's been a part of this thing in the chat and the show and everything. This year has been incredible, and you guys have done some amazing work. I've been nothing but impressed, and just wanted to say, keep it up, because you guys are rocking it. Rivet is coming into a big year this year, and we say this a lot, but we're going to start expanding into new chains in 2022, and those things are going to to push us in new directions that we haven't quite seen yet and haven't quite talked about that much yet, but ultimately some new things like unkillable dApps may be possible in the future, thanks to some things that we're thinking up and maybe going to build. So just stay tuned.
That's, super exciting. That's awesome.
Thank
you.
Knowing that Sean's probably next, I'm just going to say, Greg really covered my points. So
perfect.
Thanks, Greg.
And we went over anyway, so thanks for that. Sean, what's up?
End of the year, like Greg said, it's been great hanging out with y'all. As far as number goes up, Dragonchain is one of the most frustrating ones that me and my friends will talk about. Like, why isn't this worth more? It's worth more. Why don't people see that? And the number should be way, way higher. I thought Digital Foods made a good point about blockchain and the tech. He compared it to they compared it to video games. How like anyone used to be able to just write a video game, just took a little time, and now it's so much harder and requires hundreds of millions of dollars to write a really good video game. But yeah, I remember being able to write a video game back in the 1900s. A simple one, but yeah. End of the year shows coming up. That's about it. Just follow me and yeah. But it's been great hanging with y'all. And if I would like to have you guys on the end of the year show too over on my channel.
That'd be awesome, man.
All right. Yes,
I'm down.
Yes.
Also, promise not to build Skynet, guys. I'm not going to do that.
Yes. Nice. And for my update, look for, I don't remember the date. I've probably been told and have forgotten, the quarterly report. It is not we're not a public company at Dragonchain, but we do put out a quarterly report that is based upon, fundamentals, what we've done, so that the patient among us can appreciate in their wisdom of being involved in a project early on. And by the way, the closer we can tie behavior to value, the better in the long run. So, think about anywhere that we can apply that in Dragonchain. Definitely Den is built on that. So I'm hoping that it kind of permeates everything that we do, that it's all about behavior. Which some of the behavior might be getting involved early by doing something that is monetary, but in the very least, you don't have to do that. You can just come in and take part, and you don't have to put money in. That's the beauty. And frankly, if you don't put money in, you earn something like matter. I don't know what it's going to be worth. That's not why we have it. We have it because it can do something. But you might need to have a different reason for having that matter. So anyway, it's awesome stuff. So thanks all of you, because you've been involved in so many of these shows. And when we put this together, we're like, hey, we should do something beyond what we do with Super Happy, where it's broader. It kind of takes this, we had this property at Dragonchain, which was the Blockchain Seattle meetup, and COVID happened. So we're like, we can't do that anymore. We can't. We were so busy, it was hard to focus on it anyway. But we put this together seriously as an experiment to see, okay, what can we do to drive more people to view? What can we do to communicate better ideas and to explain to people who are getting interested in this technology, in a better, more fundamental way, a way that they can apply it across the board. They don't have to, say, oh, we're going to explain this one project and say it's, you should buy it now because it's going to be worth something. And it, that might be part of it, but it's very much about, what the technology can do and how it can do it. And so I appreciate you guys being involved, because you've been pretty consistent, and I know that's not easy, especially when we go over like we have, but we're within the hour and a half. So I'll just say that we just took it upon ourselves to follow the guidance of the lot holders for WBRT, and
went a week early.
One week early. So it's all good.
Just a preview to how long it'll be starting next week.
Yes. And but I think it's a little more natural. It's like we aren't cutting as maybe harshly, it was easier to cut this week. So
good call, governance people.
Yes. So happy New Year, everyone. I hope everybody's safe and happy. Don't go crazy on the last day of the year or anything. And we'll see you next week in a new year, and it'll be a good year. I do hope, I do think. And I think that's it, right? So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the episode, because that's how the contributors, I can't remember how many questions we got through, will get their lot, which is very important, because we're going to have to make a lot of decisions in the new year for the show. And I think that's it.
Catch me on Sean's show over on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll be there.
Now, more than ever, our data is at risk. Our supply chains are in jeopardy. Our systems are broken, and businesses feel powerless. Dragonchain gives you a different way, a safer way, a better way, and you have power over your data. Dragonchain gives you proof in an untrusted world. Build now at dragonchain.com. America's blockchain.